Good kill. Hey, good kill.
Alright, so you're here to find out how to drop flare and chaff in the Hind. Let's jump right into it. The first thing you need to do is bind your launch snares bind in your controls. So go ahead and bind that. That's going to be the first thing you need. Then we're going to jump into the cockpit. And it's also a good idea to bind set 1, 2, and 3. That's going to allow you to switch between cassettes when you're the pilot. We'll see what that means a little bit into the tutorial here. But go ahead and bind that. Okay, so once you have that bound, you're going to come down here to your countermeasures panel, this thing right here. And so you have a flare interval. This is obviously seconds in between flare drops. The Hind is going to drop 2 flares at once in a V pattern, and that's 2 from each side, right? So you can have, it's how many seconds in between each pair of flares that are going to release. You can have 2 seconds, you can have 4 seconds. The next one, 4 or 16 series, you can pick between those two. That means how many pairs will it drop, right? So if you pick 4, you're going to drop 4 pairs. If you go to 16, you're going to drop 16 pairs. Okay, 16 obviously a much longer program. These red lights will flash as the flares release. This is your actual launch button, the one that we just bound. And these 2 switches here will allow you to choose what side the countermeasure drops from. So you can drop just the left side, you can drop just the right side, or you can just drop both. And back here we have a cassette selector. Okay, so in the back of the Hind we have 3 cassettes. Let's have a look at those real quick. And so as those cassettes empty, you can actually switch to the next one, cassette number 2, and cassette number 3. Now this brings us to an interesting point. The Hind also carries chaff. So how do we drop just chaff? First of all, it's going to work the same way. Like, assume you brought only chaff, it would work the same way, okay? But there is a way that you can choose how much chaff goes into each cassette, or rather which cassette is full of chaff and the other one is full of flares. Okay, so if you want to drop just chaff, you could select number 1. Okay, and then if you wanted to drop flares, you could punch it to number 2 and you only get flares. And 3, you could have flares also, so you get more flares. And then, you know, you want chaff again, you got to go back to number 1. You can pop just your chaff. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to set this up in the mission editor right now. So having a look in the mission editor, you can see here in the payload section, we have our chaff and flare. Currently we have 64 chaff and 128 flare. 64 is the number between cassettes. Okay, so when I have 64 chaff and 128 flare, my first cassette is full of chaff. My next two and number 2 and number 3 are full of flare. Okay, I could alternatively reverse those numbers to 128 and 64, and now I have my number 1 and number 2 cassettes are full of chaff, and number 3 is full of flare. Okay, I think you guys get it. It's pretty simple. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.